Hey, welcome everybody. Scott Bursick here with trophy.fish. Wanted to just do a quick video and talk about wintertime catfishing. So the season's coming up. Water temperature's got to drop quite a bit before the big cats start showing up in the places that I fish for them. Not that there aren't big cats out there, but there are. But the wintertime fishing for cats is one of my favorite times of the year. And I want to talk about a strategy that I use that gives me a lot of time on the water in the wintertime when a lot of people probably don't even tend to go out because of the wind. The wind can be your enemy, but the wind can be your friend as well. And I want to talk about a strategy using bridges to provide you some protection, but also to find fish that are concentrated into feeding areas because of the wind and the current that's created by it. So I'm going to be talking about Lake Ray Hubbard. So let me cut over to the map here. Oh, I'm already at the map. All right. I was supposed to be on this screen and then cut over to the map. So there, we made the transition. So when you're fishing Lake Ray Hubbard, one of the things that you'll note is that there's bridges that cross the lake. And let me go ahead and switch to the satellite view. And these bridges, this I-30 crosses over, and then there's this 66 bridge, and there's another bridge up top here, and I don't go up there very often, but I probably should. I've gone up there, but it's very shallow, and there's some good shallow water catfishing to be had. But where I'm going to concentrate most of my time when I'm fishing for big blues in the winter is around the 66 bridge and then around the 30 bridge, both sections of the 30 bridge. Primarily, though, these two. And what makes these two different than this one here is the road is suspended, so there's pilings going into the water the entire way across for the most part. The edges are earthen, but these bridges here are mostly earthen, but they have openings in the bridge, and that's really key, and I'll kind of go into that here in a second. Now, let me go ahead and zoom in on the map a little bit to the 66 bridge area, and we'll use this as the example. So typically I'll launch at this SH66 public boat ramp. It's a pretty decent ramp. It's got a couple of very deep boat ramps, so if you got big boats, you can launch there without having to back real far into the water. And if the wind is coming from the north, like it is quite a bit in the wintertime, you've got a little bit of protection here because this boat ramp is packed back into here. So the rougher water is really out here a little bit. It can get rough up in here, especially if it's coming from the northwest. It can be almost impossible to launch without swamping the back of your boat, so you just kind of have to play it by ear. But I look for, if I've got a good north wind or even a good strong south wind, this is my go-to for big cats. And here's the reason why. So if we look at the bridge a little bit closer, you can see that there is an earthen embankment that goes all along this bridge, all the way out to about right here. And then there's an opening in the bridge, and it's a pretty big opening, and then it goes back to earthen over on this side. So if the wind is blowing from the north, I'll launch from here, and I will shoot across and get back underneath to this side of the bridge where I've got some protection from the wind. What I'll do is I'll set up my boat and everything up close to the embankment because there's some slick water there, because the wind is blowing from the north, so you've got that protection from the bridge. And I'll get the boat prepared. I'll get my drift socks and stuff set up. I'll get my baits and everything ready. And then I'll push back just far enough that the wind starts to catch my boat and I start to drift backwards. On my boat, some people drift sideways. Some people, drift with the nose into the wind. I like going nose into the wind with my boat because it's a flats boat, so it's pretty shallow. And if I go sideways, I can get water over the side if it's real rough. I'd rather point nose into the wind. And I put two drift socks out, one on the right and one on the left, off the front of the boat. And that usually keeps my speed just about right. I usually tend to drift at about 0.3 miles an hour. Anything faster than that, I may deploy my trolling motor, and I'll give it a little bump every now and then just to kind of control my speed and maybe even to control my direction that the boat is if the boat's kind of drifting more to the left or more to the right, I may bump it a little bit just to kind of tweak it. But what I'm doing is I'm drifting back just far enough that the wind starts to catch the boat, and I get my drift going, and I run 4 rods off the front, and I'll change the distance that they are out in the water. So I'll run like a long line, a short line, a long line, and a short line in my Be Ready rod holders with the rods kind of fanned out. And I've got a couple of YouTube videos where I show how I'm doing that on my boat. And then I'll just drift back until the point where I don't feel comfortable anymore. So if I get back, to here, and suddenly I'm in 3-foot white caps, then maybe I'll bump it back up to here again, and I'll just do that drift again. And here's the key. As the wind is blowing from the north, there's water pushing through this. You get a really good current going. And where that current comes through, right around the edge right here, you'll see that there's a line where the current is meeting the slacker water that's being protected by the wind. The big catfish will sit right on that line right there. They don't want to work too hard to stay in that current because they're big and fat and lazy, but they will move up into the edge of that current where it's coming through, and they'll sit there and feed on bait that's being pushed down by the wind. So if you drift that line, that edge right there, you're going to have really good luck. There are some good fish that come off that line. Some of my biggest fish, in fact, all of my biggest fish have all come from Lake Ray Hubbard using this method. Now, if you're fishing on 30, if the wind is from the south, you've got a pretty long run. I used to launch at this ramp, but now they charge like $300 for a year, and the road's been messed up. There's another marina that's right here that's on the north side. So if the wind is from the south, you can launch here and get that protection and be able to come through. Now, this bridge doesn't have a big opening, but it's big enough that this pattern totally works here too. If the wind is coming from the north, however, you're going to have a little bit of a rough ride getting through, but you're protected in the marina, and they charge $12 during the week and $20 on the weekend to launch here. So it's not cheap, but if you've got to get time on the water and the wind's blowing 30 miles an hour, you can make it from here out through this opening and then be able to drift this edge right here as it goes through. And there's a pocket that's right here that's pretty productive. Those fish like to sit in that hole. You may not even have to drift. You could pull back a little bit. If you've got spot lock on your trolling motor, you can spot lock in that spot right there and cast into this current where it's coming through and do just about as good without having to drift at all. So it allows you to get some time in the water in the winter when normally you couldn't. As far as the rigs go, I use, sometimes it just depends on what I get my hands on, but I'll use 50-pound braid. I think I've got some 80-pound braid that I run on some of my bigger reels, and I use a 100-pound leader. And I know that might sound excessive, but the first thing these things do when they get on your line is they twist up in your line, and your line can get nicked and stuff pretty easy. I've lost some big fish, learned some tough lessons. Doug Elliott, Tex, he taught me in the beginning to use heavy leaders. He asked me every now and then, what size leader are you using? And my answer now is always 100-pound. And I'll use some pretty big circle hooks, and I use big baits. I don't use small baits at all in the wintertime. I use big baits. If I can't get gizzard shad, because they can be kind of hard to get in the wintertime, I'll go to Fiesta, and there's a couple things that work there. They sell whole buffalo, and I'll go ahead and let them scale it and cut the head off, but I just take the body. I don't make them work and fillet it or anything, because that's not what I want. I want that skin to be on there. And I'll cut them in chunks that are about probably 1.5 inches wide and maybe even about that long. And sometimes I do strips. I'll do like a strip that's like 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch, but it'll be like 6 to 8 inches long. And I just barely put that circle hook through the skin on the end so that a lot of that hook is exposed. And they'll eat it. I mean, they don't nibble at the end. You'll get, if you're like on Lake Tawakoni where there's a ton of little catfish, they'll try to nip at the ends, but with that buffalo skin, they won't pull it off. If they don't have buffalo, or if you just don't mind spending a few extra bucks, they sell a fish called a milkfish. And milkfish is almost just like a gizzard shad when you cut it out. And those I'll leave the skin on, but I'll fillet it and then cut that into pieces. And I usually mix up milkfish and buffalo. I'll do like on my longs, I'll run milkfish. On my shorts, I'll run buffalo. Just so I know which one they're hitting on. And then another thing that I'll do is I've got rod holders off the back sides of my boat. I run 2 rigs there that I'll drop straight down with about a 3-ounce weight so that it hangs straight down in the water column, and I'll reel it up about 2 or 3 cranks so it's suspended, and I let those go off on the side because those should hang straight down. If they don't hang straight down because you're drifting too fast, you can use a heavier weight, but again, circle hooks on those as well. The rods that I have out on the front, I'll use about 1 ounce to 1.5 ounces of weight, just depending. There's not a lot of snags on this part of Lake Ray Hubbard. If you're fishing either of these bridges, it's pretty snag free, especially 66. There's like nothing. It's like the surface of the moon. It's like 18 feet all the way across the entire way. There's a little bit of a drop off at the bridge right there, and that's another area that attracts them. But for the most part, it's just like the surface of the moon, completely flat. You do have more terrain to deal with here on the 30 bridge, so you can get hung up there. And if you're using 80-pound braid and 100-pound leaders, you know, you're going to have to give a pretty good tug to break that thing off. But sometimes the hook will just straighten out at that point. So anyway, that's my strategy for winter catfishing. I hope this helps some of you. Also want to throw out there that I've started a guide service. It's a one-on-one guide service, so it'd just be me and you. And we can do trophy catfishing in the wintertime. In the summer months, we can go out to Lake Tawakoni and put some meat in the freezer. So if you want to catch some eaters to take home and throw in there, we can go out and do that. I'll provide water and drinks. You bring any snacks or anything you want on board. I've got all state-of-the-art electronics, so you can see live scope working. It's kind of cool to see the catfish schooled up, and when you're catching them, watching a catfish come up and eat your bait. It's kind of cool, especially when you get a big one and you can watch yourself fight it when you're bringing it in. So if you go to Facebook, just do a search for trophy.fish guide. All is one word, trophy.fish guide, and it'll take you to my page. You can book your trip there, and we can go ahead and connect and figure out what's going to work best for you. And you'll find my rates extremely affordable, and we'll go out and have a good time. So thanks for watching. Do me a favor, please. Hit the like and the subscribe button down at the bottom. I'm trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers, and I'd like to put out a lot more content. And as I'm guiding, we'll have the opportunity for you to show up in a video if you want. I'll bring camera equipment and stuff on board, and I'll film you catching some fish, and you'll have some footage to take back with you too. So thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you guys soon.